What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. You know who this is. It's the truth. It's the dad bod god, baby. It's Piers Austin. And man, I'm excited for another episode of Shooting the Shit Uncensored tonight. And you know what, guys? Today is my birthday, and I'm excited to be sitting down on my birthday and talking to the Illuminator himself, the one and only Xander Sullivan. And man, I've been wanting to have Xander on for a long time, man. Every time we're on shows together, always great conversation. Man, I really, dig hanging out with him, bro. So I'm glad we're able to finally tee this up and get it done. But before we get into that, I need to take a quick pause for that cause and thank one of our amazing sponsors, and that is sleeps.com, sorry. So sleeps.com is your one-stop shop for all your athletic wear. You've got all your athletic gear and wear covered. They've got armbands, compression pants, compression shorts, headbands, boots, mouth guards, and they've even got those dirty boxes that you know that I'm always rocking. Now, these dirty boxes are amazing. They stay dry, they stay fresh, and they've got funky designs on the front of them to keep that special person in your life giggling when the belt buckle comes undone at the end of the day. So go and check out sleeps.com. Go and check out those dirty boxes and use that promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Also, wherever you're tuning in, I appreciate it. Wherever you're finding us, I love it. Please, if you're tuning in on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell to stay notified, send it to your mother, your uncle, your cousin, your friend, your neighbor, your uncle, your enemy, whoever likes dope podcasts and amazing conversations. Because let's face it, here at the Piers Austin channel, we're bringing you conversations with professional wrestlers, professional athletes, musicians, comedians, you name it. So get to clicking, get to sharing, tap the little red button and tap in. Also, if you're listening on a podcast platform, please, baby, please give me a 5-star review. It helps with our analytics. It helps us bring more amazing conversations to more amazing people like yourselves. So what are you waiting for? Get to clicking. But anyway, that's enough me talking shit. Now it's time for me to start shooting the shit with my guest, the Illuminator, the one and only Xander fucking Sullivan, baby. Yo, what's going on? Xander Sullivan in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Xander, welcome to the show.
Piers, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to having a chat with you for Yonks. And also, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I couldn't help but blush. And happy birthday, my God.
Hey,
many happy returns.
Thank you very much, brother. Thank you very much.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a good day. Just been kicking back this evening with my family. Had a nice dinner, and now I get to sit back and record an amazing podcast with yourself. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you for giving up your Friday evening to literally shoot the shit with me, man. So I'm excited.
Absolutely, anytime.
So, dude, I got to say, man, I saw you at FWA, bro, and like you've gone through a bit of a transformation, bro. Like you've lost a ton of fucking weight, bro. Like, I feel like last time I saw you, you had like lost like, I don't know, like 10, 15 kgs.
Yeah. So in around this time last year, I weighed in at about 107 kilos. And I weighed myself the other day. I think I might have put on maybe like 1 or 2 kilos just because there's been some, life going on, but I got down to 94. So I think that's what, 13, kilos in over a year. So I'm really happy with my progress and keen to, continue it on. uh, I'm never sort of like totally satisfied. I
Yeah.
always want to, shoot to greater heights. I always want to, be an even better version of myself, tomorrow than I was today, than I was yesterday. And But I'm really happy with the way things have been going so far, and I'm very touched that you noticed.
Yeah, man. No, absolutely, bro. It's hard work, but by saying like you've lost 13 kilos in the last 12 months, it sounds like you've done it the right way and the healthy way. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
fad diet, just
Well, I mean, a number of things sort of, I guess, happen. For one thing, I went over to New Zealand for and participated in Fale Dojo for part of their September intake. I was there for just over half of it. I had to leave ultimately due to some family stuff that was happening in Australia that I had to return to.
sure.
But while I was there, one of the coaches, this amazing guy called Tangi Rapati, he did up a sort of a training plan for all of us, just sort of a good split for sort of workouts, and in addition to the fact that I was working my ass off, as you can imagine, 1,000 squats, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
I also went back into my Rolodex and found some old dietitian meal plans that I'd had from when I was a little bit younger. And combined with that, I also have been doing my certificate 3 in fitness over at TAFE Meadowbank, which, in addition to also providing me with, immense knowledge of like, anatomy and how best to train and how best to attain certain goals, we've just completed the nutrition unit. So it's
Mm.
given me a greater sort of, I guess, sense and ability to kind of look at my, food and training in a much more sort of kind of like scientific and analytical manner. And also just been doing a ridiculously stupid amount of cardio, especially over the last month or so. So yeah, just all of those sort of things, combined has just sort of led to, the gradual, progression in the right direction that I wanted it to go.
Yeah. 100%, man. And like, do you go doing the fitness, like the Cert 3 in fitness because you want a career in fitness? Or is this something just to sort of help with the wrestling career to get yourself on point there? Or like,
A little bit of It's a little bit of both, because as you can, as you well understand, wrestling is an incredibly visual kind of, sport. Like it is
Mm,
very much the expectation that one looks the part, and pursuing fitness allows me to be able to improve my own fitness and uh, sculpt my body into the best possible shape that it can be, so that I can look the best and play my part in the most convincing manner. But it also, considering that working as, like, for example, as a PT, the schedule is a lot more flexible.
sure.
It's something that a lot of the people in the wrestling, community, are would be able to like get context for me from. It's a sort of, in addition to being really good for me, it's also just a great kind of job to be able to have the kind of work life wrestling balance that that I sort of would allow me the sort of, I guess, the best chance to succeed, because I worked in offices, I've worked, in more sort of like casual environments, and it just, commuting from the CBD towards the Pro Wrestling Academy, and getting there at like 6:55, and not having necessarily been able to go to the gym during the day and things like that, was always a real struggle. So being able to kind of have a job that allows me to train and also to better sort of juggle my time
Mm.
is the ideal sort of situation I want to put myself in.
Yeah, man, 100%. And like for you, is like wrestling, like that's the career that you want to like pursue? That's the ultimate goal for you, is like by any means necessary, get signed, make a living out of this.
Exactly that. I've wanted to be WWE champion, main eventing WrestleMania since I was 10 years old, actually
Mm.
11. And every single solitary thing that I've done since I started wrestling has been in the pursuit of that goal. I'm all in. No pun intended. Um, it's just a matter of, that's part of the reason why I moved down to Sydney from Brisbane, where I started wrestling.
Mm.
Well, Queensland, where I started wrestling first on the Gold Coast, then moved up to Brisbane. Because PWA is the single best, pro wrestling company in Australia, and arguably one of the top companies in the entire world. And being around, these amazing wrestlers and being trained by the best trainers in pro wrestling in all the world
Mm.
just made sense. It just made total sense for me to want to go down there and, learn from the best and work with the best and train with the best in order to ultimately take the steps that, people like, Grayson Waller and Steph Delander and, Robbie Eagles and all of these amazing people have in being able to make pro wrestling a incredibly successful career.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, I feel PWA is a place where they've really been able to create so many amazing talent. And I don't mean like that they've created the people, whatever, but I feel like it comes with like the dedication from some people, and everything that I've been told about Grayson Waller is like how dedicated he was the moment he got there, and just, was just so, yeah. And you see it now, it's like, that's the sort of dedication that it sort of takes to be in it. But like PWA is by far one of the best, if not the best, professional wrestling company in this country, period, and probably one of the best independents in the world.
100%. Like, I cannot say enough good things about the Pro Wrestling Academy. Like, I have learned more in the near 3 years that I've been at PWA and training at the academy than I have in the preceding years that I've been a pro wrestler. Like, they have the art of training down to just that, an art, like science. I can't imagine, it's hard to comprehend or contemplate a place that does it better than they do. They're just incredible. I can't say enough good things about them. I'm keen to go to the open tryouts that they'll have in I think it'll be a couple of weeks when this airs, or maybe 1 week, and just sort of see the progression for the new batch of recruits, and see them grow in the same way that all of the the people that we've spoken about have.
Yeah, man, and I think that's the key there, right? Is to see the progression, and everything, and you're seeing, the talent sort of elevate to that top, and you look at where Australians now are, and I've said this, on many podcasts, bro, like where Australian talent is now seen at in the world, like, you know what I mean? Like some of our, like, bro, Australians now over in WWE are holding some of the top positions on certain cards and having some pretty decent spots on cards. You know what I mean? Like, you go back 20, 30 years, you didn't see that. Now it's definitely been a shift where I think it's more attainable now for Australians to see, okay, well, there are Australians that have gone and made it over there. It is an attainable, it is an achievable goal.
Couldn't agree more.
But bro, like we're talking before, man, the conspiracy conspiracy theorist gimmick, bro. Like you're a conspiracy theorist yourself, bro, right? Like that's how this whole gimmick sort of like started to be, right?
Actually, no. It's funny. The way that the gimmick actually came about is I used to live with Shepard Alexander, who's a young lion over at the New Zealand New Japan dojo at Fale Dojo, and has been wrestling for God, I think he's over a decade now. I used to live with him, and we were just kind of we were just shooting the shit, no pun intended, one day, and we were sort of talking about just various sort of conspiracies. Like I spitballed the idea of, like, imagine if the reason why people say that we shouldn't look at the sun why do they say that? I don't think it's actually because, we were going to go blind. Maybe there's something up there that people don't want us to see. What if it's just something like, a sticky note or something like that? What if it's just some Illuminati spotlight? And we were just, giggling and, looking, and we sort of looked at each other for a moment, and Shep sort of like said, there's something there. And like, I sort of realized, yeah, there is. And this was during lockdown, so I didn't have much to do. So I grabbed a notepad and just started writing down conspiracies involving various wrestlers. Like, what would be the conspiracy, for, person A, B, C, D, yada, yada, yada. And it got me thinking, because I knew that I was going to go down to Sydney at that point. I knew I was going to move down. And I figured, rather than trying to leverage my old, warhead Xander Sullivan gimmick, no nonsense wrestler with like a forehead of steel, rather than trying to get that over in a new, place, and basically starting from scratch there, I thought it was, considering the nature of the times we were living in, I thought it was a good idea to maybe run with something new. And that was where I, what I decided to do. And that's the rest, as they say, is history. It's funny because, like, despite the fact that I, am Illuminator Xander Sullivan, crackpot conspiracy theorist, for the most part, because, I was raised by a English literature professor and a lawyer, so having a very sort of, I guess, critical mind led me to kind of scoff at, the bulk of conspiracy theories.
Sure.
Yeah, which is, totally ironic, but it also means that I'm able to kind of come at it with a kind of lightheartedness and a sort of willingness to play the fool, and a lack of fear of, being made fun of, that has, I guess, allowed it to, I don't know, kind of be, more enjoyed, more as, kind of a laugh, rather than as being this, this big, serious, heel, being something that can either be, cheered because of how ridiculous it is, or, booed for being one of those ridiculous, people that they've been seeing on their Reddit threads and 4chan screens, and indeed their, political commentators for the last 3 or so years.
Yeah, man, because it's an interesting gimmick, because I feel like it's never really, like, here in Australia, it's never been done. Like, I don't really even think it's been done overseas. Like, I think Sami Zayn may have done something similar for a little while. But
There
I
is
think that
there
was
is another wrestler. Well, there is another wrestler down in Adelaide, a guy called Wham Bam Bellows, who's absolutely fantastic, who also does a conspiracy theorist, gimmick. And his work is fantastic, and I've always, tried really hard to sort of do kind of the exact opposite as to what he was doing.
Sure.
Not wearing like a tinfoil hat, being much more of the kind of sort of Reddit thread, lives in his mom's, base, actually more like lives in the dumpster kind of conspiracy theorist, rather than some of the stuff that he's been doing. And I also tried really hard to avoid, doing the Sami Zayn thing as well, just to try to be unique, and just try to sort of, I guess, put something out there that's a little bit, that just hasn't been done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it was definitely, your act is so much different to what Sami Zayn was doing. Like, I think it was similar to the certain thing about the conspiracies, but I think the deliverance was different. You know what I mean? Like, the way that you delivered the things that you were doing. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't go, oh, this is a Sami Zayn ripoff, or I didn't see too many similarities to it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think what kind of helped me with that was kind of trying to find a sort of a motivation, I guess you could say, that was different from other conspiracy theorist gimmicks out there. Like, my sort of whole thing, and it's how I came up with the name, is being dead set on eliminating the wrestling Illuminati, treating it as, me crusading against, the men in black, the people who are, holding the strings, but, in the pro wrestling world, being an illuminator in the sense of shedding light, but also eliminating the Illuminati, elimination, illuminator, yada, yada.
Yeah.
so that sort of has guess it's kind of helped give me a kind of foundation to work off of, and a logic and a reason behind, everything that I, do, whether it's, whoever I'm, in a feud with, whoever I'm in a match with, etc.
What would you say would be one of like a conspiracy that you believe? Like that.
Ooh, that's a good question. I definitely think that there's something fishy about the death of John F. Kennedy. I don't think that it was necessarily just, Lee Harvey Oswald shooting him and all that sort of stuff. I think that I don't know necessarily who was involved. I don't know whether it was um, the FBI or the mafia or, whomever it may be. But I definitely think that the narrative that we're all told that it was, that it was just, Lee Harvey Oswald and that there was no sort of, I guess, grand, government conspiracy, I think it just seems awfully convenient. Seems awfully convenient that, the guy who did it, got shot before he went to trial. And, the guy who, shot him, didn't last much longer either. And it just sort of, there's just a lot of things that, that don't add up. I don't know who it was. Was it FBI? Who knows? Was the mafia? Who knows? Was it Fidel?
Well, people probably think it was the mafia, just the way the style, how it went down.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think that's probably why, because they had just known they're like, okay, they clean up loose ends quick. So, like, were they involved? Who knows? You know what I mean? Like, was it the FBI? But, you know what I mean? Like, because JFK, like, I think the main part of it was JFK's brother, who was a senator of like New York, was he was having some, like, he was putting a crackdown on the mob, and that was like their way of like trying to get to him. And I think that they even tried to take out his brother as well.
Well, I don't know whether it was they who ultimately succeeded, but Robert Kennedy, his brother, did ultimately die a few years later. Right. So it's entirely plausible. It's funny. It reminds me, there's a line in my favorite book, American Gods by Neil Gaiman, that he, one of the sort of, I guess, the black hats, one of the, the sort of the men in black, is talking to his buddy, and he say, how do we know that the FBI weren't involved in the assassination of JFK? And he goes, well, how do we know? Well, he's dead, isn't he?
I mean, I think there's always going to be conspiracies, and I think that, like, it's the same thing as like who killed Jimmy Hoffa. Like, there's things that people are never going to know.
I love open-ended questions. I love questions to which we don't know the answer, to which we can only contemplate. It makes life interesting.
Well, it's like I saw this documentary on Kurt Cobain, and it was called "Soaked in Bleach." Have you seen it? It was
I haven't.
It was made a few years ago, and it was basically like the recordings of like people. They were interviewing people like his best friend, his parents, everything like that. And they were saying like, no, he was not that kind of guy. He was like, he wasn't like that way. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way he would have done it. And then they were doing like analysis of the crime scene with the weapon and where certain shells would it was like some of the most conspiracy deep shit. And they had recordings of like Courtney Love, like, talking to a private investigator before his death, going, if he dies, that would be really good for my record sales and shit like that. And it's like, this is like like Courtney Love tried to have this shit shut down pretty quick. Like, before it was released. But it was pretty crazy, man. Like, even that, like a conspiracy like that is still something that's so shocking to the world that people are still sort of asking questions about.
I know it's a testament to the kind of impact that those people had on culture, on people's lives, and that we still ponder the questions of their untimely demise decades later.
It's a crazy world, man. That's what people just want to sort of like fascinate into. But then as well, like when you start hearing all these other stuff and this stuff coming out, it's like, well, okay, is this being put together in a certain narrative to tell a particular story?
Well, it's that old saying, history is written by the winners. really everything that we consume in the media, and in the way that the grand narratives are written. They're just that. They're stories. They're written from one person's perspective. They're written from a first person perspective,
Mm.
and the truth oftentimes kind of gets absorbed in that, in the words and in the penmanship of the person who's writing the story.
Yeah, man. It gets chopped and changed, man. It's like the whole Chinese whispers game. It's like, I mean, you tell one person one thing, and by the time it gets to the end of the line, it's slowly changed to a completely different narrative.
I was always rubbish at that game.
Really? Why, you couldn't remember what one person told you to the
It
next
wasn't
person?
it wasn't that. It was always the fact that I guess I was a little bit deaf, and I never quite, picked up the the details of what it was they were trying to say. I've always had a good memory. Like, I've always been able to rattle it off, but I can't exactly, I can't recount what I don't hear very well.
Yeah, no, that's very true, man. But man, talking about getting in the business, man. So you grew up in Queensland, did you?
Yeah, so I like to say I'm a walking international incident, because I am the son of an American father, an Australian mother. I was born in France and grew up on the Gold Coast. So all over the place like a
Jeez.
mad woman's breakfast. Yeah. I got into the business. I'd always been a huge fan. I started watching when I was 11, and about 2 years later, I resolved that I was going to be the next Kurt Angle. So I started doing amateur wrestling. I started doing like Olympic freestyle wrestling, because I had this idea in my head that I was going to, win an Olympic gold medal and go into the WWE in the same way that he did.
Yeah.
Ultimately that didn't happen. But when I graduated from high school, I, wasn't really doing much, and I just thought to myself, like, what am I waiting for? Why, let's just get out there and do it. And I looked up pro wrestling schools in the area, and I found Impact Pro Wrestling Australia, or IPW Australia,
Mm.
and they were based out of they had a school based out of like not too far away from me, about maybe like 20 minutes drive. Started training with them on the 7th of January 2015, and made my debut about 4 months later. So very, very quick turnaround.
Jeez.
I know, right? Huge. I was, with hindsight, I was not ready. I had so much that I didn't know, so much that I, wish I'd known. But
Was that just your confidence, or do you feel like that your trainers? Do you feel like your trainers saw something in you that you didn't have the confidence that you didn't see it, or do you feel like he just needed a body for a particular spot and was pushing you in
no, it
that?
wasn't that. I was banging on the door because I was desperate to get in the ring. I was desperate to, get on shows and start wrestling, and with enough persistence. And they thought that I had some talent, so they put me in there. I wrestled my first match against BJ Blade, who's an absolute legend in the Queensland wrestling scene, at William Duncan State School in Nerang on the 2nd of May, and just took off from there. Wrestled with IPW for about a year, and then around this time, I'd actually moved up to Brisbane to study at the University of Queensland. So I was commuting back and forth. So it eventually made sense for me to sort of transition to wrestling some more of the Brisbane independents, which I did. And worked that scene, and, did the best I could to help it out, and had a amazing, run until 2020 came around and lockdown hit, and I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. I had been stood down from my job, and my lease was expiring. So I was like, let's try a new place. Let's go down to Sydney. And I've been here ever since.
Damn, man. So like 2020 lockdown, bro. Like that was a crazy part of the world, man. So you lose your job, you get made redundant, do you? Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah, I was working. I was working as a travel agent, which, as you can, of course, understand, not exactly the most secure job to have when no one can travel anywhere. So I was made redundant. Luckily, they were still, I was still on their payroll for like a good amount of time. So I had, I was being well supported, which was great. I was on JobKeeper, and I was just sort of sitting at home and, with not much sort of, I guess, aim and direction. And I thought, look, this sucks. This sucks so badly, but, I'm going to make the best of it. And I'm going to, treat this as an opportunity to take a new step in my career.
Yeah, man. No, 100%, bro. Good on you for making that such a huge leap, bro. But how did you find like going from like living in Queensland, Brisbane, then moving down to Sydney? Like, how was that transition for you?
It was actually it was actually surprisingly smooth. The hard thing about it was that I was moving into an area that was a COVID hotspot. Like I moved into Campbelltown, which as a consequence meant that I was able to cross the border into New South Wales, but until the restrictions were lessened, I actually wasn't able to come back to Queensland. Like it was a one-way trip. Like until things got better with COVID, I wasn't going to see my mom. I wasn't going to see my family. I wasn't going to see any of my friends. So it was a real kind of, you know, here we go. We don't know when I'm going to see any of you again, adios.
Mm.
But aside from that, it was really smooth because I actually moved in to a house with Tough Stuff Ricky South, with Jessica Troy, with Jax Jordan, and with the incredible merch girl Sam. So it was great because I was living with some of the some of my closest friends in wrestling, and I was also living in just the most amazing environment to sort of kickstart my
Mm.
my new stage in my career. And I had a good relationship with the people at the Pro Wrestling Academy, and they accepted me right away. Like I arrived into Sydney on like Monday, the 29th of July at like, I want to say like 3 o'clock, and then went to training that night
That's
at
dope.
the
That's dope.
academy. Yeah, it was great. And from then it was really smooth. Like I missed my family, and it took me a good while to sort of, I guess, make sort of, I guess, really close friends in Sydney, but it ultimately all worked out, and I
100%.
met my partner down here, and fell in love, and have had a number of my old friends from Brisbane ultimately actually moved down to Sydney. So I am really happy to say that I've got a good network of people that I love both in and outside of the wrestling industry. And on top of that, I feel incredibly fulfilled creatively in wrestling, and it's as I said earlier, I feel 3 times the wrestler now than I was when I left Queensland. So it's all been worth it. It's all been it's all been uh, worth the sacrifices that I made in July of 2020.
How much like is wrestling, your life? Like, I mean, could like put into training, watching it, being on shows, etc. Like, does wrestling consume a majority of your life?
Yeah, I would say it does. If I'm not actively doing something that it directly involves wrestling, I'm thinking about it. Like it's always, rattling around, in my head. I'm always looking for inspiration for new facets for, the character, new things for it to tackle. Everything that I do at the gym is in the pursuit of, looking good for wrestling. Every bit of wrestling that I watch recreationally, I'm picking apart and trying to incorporate it to my game. I'm going to training at least, 3 times a week. I try to work myself onto every single show that I can possibly, get on to get as many reps as I can and get my name out there in the best possible way. I every single thing that I am looking forward to in my life invariably involves wrestling in some way or another.
Yeah. I mean, I think like if you want to take it to that level, it kind of has to, right?
Yeah, and I've never been the kind of guy to to be able to just do something at 75%. Like I'm either in it completely, or I'm not in it at all. And wrestling was the first thing that I ever really wanted to do. Like when I was a kid, I never had any ambition of growing up to become anything until I started watching, pro wrestling. before I turned 11, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And then when I started watching wrestling, I knew immediately what I wanted to do with my life. And I haven't changed in that deep-seated desire ever since.
All right. So 11 years old, you turn on wrestling. What's the first thing you see?
So it's funny because I was first actually introduced to wrestling through the SmackDown versus Raw video game. And I was an avid gamer and I played it, all the time. And then I was just clicking channels and I saw, WWE Raw was on. I was like, wait a second, those are the people in the game. Those are the people. Oh, this is actually a thing. What the hell? This is awesome. And it was, I can't remember the exact like date off the top of my head. I could probably find it just by scrolling through, episodes of Raw, but it was Rated RKO and Umaga versus John Cena and D-Generation X in the main events of Monday Night Raw. Umaga and John Cena go brawling out through the crowd, and then Rated RKO lays out DX, and Edge gives a concerto to Triple H on top of the announce table, and like I'm just watching this, like it's like 11-year-old kid, it's like, this is sick. And so began a lifelong love affair with pro wrestling.
It's amazing, like the things that draw you into it, man. It's like bro, like hearing you say that makes me feel kind of old, bro, because it's like my first memory is like seeing, like Hogan and, you know what I mean, like Roddy Piper, and then you're telling me about something that happened in like the Ruthless Aggression era. I'm like,
I know.
It just hurts my soul, bro. It just makes me feel so old.
I can only apologize.
Oh no, I'm just taking the piss. But yeah, man. But I kind of feel like that was a pretty cool era of wrestling, though.
Oh, it was great. I was the first WrestleMania that I ever saw was, Batista and Undertaker, John Cena and Shawn Michaels, the Battle of the Billionaires, and also the best Money in the Bank ladder match that ever happened before or since. It was just, it was so cool, and it was a really great time to be a pro wrestling fan. And it was still towards the tail end of Ruthless Aggression, so it still had that kind of that grit. Like, they allowed a bit of blood. They the storylines were really intense. There were these you had guys like Edge, Randy Orton, John Cena in their prime, and Batista. You had Rey Mysterio. You had Shawn Michaels. It was just this all-star roster, and it was so cool. And part of me, if I had a time machine, I wish I could, go back and relive, watching that for the first time, and just savor it even more. Which is not to say that I don't adore the wrestling that is, on TV now. It's more just a sense of you can everything when you experience it for the first time. It's always the most intense and the most emotionally explosive, and
100%.
like you say, you never forget your first.
100%. It's like this is the moment you just go, whoa. Like, what is, you know what I mean? Like, it captivates you. And I feel like that's what wrestling is. And we kind of spoke about that before. It's like, I think those people that you're like with wrestling, you're either into it or you're not. Like, there's no one that's in between goes, it's all right. Like, it's either like wrestling, yeah, fuck yeah, I love that shit, or like, nah, it's not for me. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a weird form of entertainment where like people are so on the fence with it. Like, whether like they're sort of like either one way or the other, not on the fence, sorry, but like,
totally.
I hate it.
I think the thing about it is that anybody who understands wrestling and anybody who truly is able to appreciate its value, and anyone who really gets wrestling adores it. Anybody who says that they hate wrestling has probably never actually taken the time to sit down and watch it and really appreciate it, or they have a misapprehension of what it's all about. Like my mom, for example, who is like the least she's not a wrestling fan, but it's not because of the fact that she doesn't enjoy it. It's just because she doesn't like violence. But even she, thinks just like nothing but the absolute like highest in terms of her appreciation for like the athleticism of it, of its the the kind of influences of things like of Commedia dell'arte and of the ancient Greek theater and all of that sort of stuff. Like she has this really cool sort of, I guess, intellectual appreciation for it. So even someone who isn't would never sort of like sit down and watch an episode of Monday Night Raw is able to see just how utterly unique and how incredible pro wrestling is.
And I think as well, like how it can completely captivate an audience.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
right.
When audiences are sort of on the cusp, and you can sort of see when like there's a performer in the ring and or two performers in the ring and they're having this amazing match, or this person's cutting this great promo in the ring and they're just sort of taking that time with it, and you can hear the crowd sort of starting to sort of like do the things that they want to do, whether it's like, you know what I mean? The little nuances of wrestling, right? And then seeing the crowd react to them and how they do it, bro. It's like seeing like, a conductor just like conducting an orchestra sometimes.
It's just fantastic. It's so good. And honestly, I feel that wrestling has the most incredible ability to suspend people's disbelief. Yeah, we all know it's not real, but when we're watching it and we're invested, we don't give a shit. We completely forget. We are just so absorbed in what we're witnessing that every single intellectual thought that we have in our head of it not being quote unquote real just flies out the window. And it's especially like, I don't know how it is for you, but me personally, I don't tend to watch the same match back over and over again. Like if I know the outcome and I know how it's going to go, I find that it's not that I necessarily don't enjoy it as much, but I sort of find that I enjoy it so much more when I don't know what's going to happen. So I always find that watching, a match, just once, watching it for the first time and just being in that and having, no idea of what's going to happen, it just, I'm a kid again.
Do you know, when I do commentary, right, I make it a point not to know who's going over. Like I don't want to know. Like if I'm given a run sheet and it's there, it's there. But like I make a point of it to not pay attention to it, because like I'd rather give a natural reaction on commentary and give that moment to that person that they deserve when I'm doing it on commentary to make it, you know what I'm saying? Like
Totally.
like because in that moment it's like give them that excitement, that sort of thing, especially when you're calling it in that time.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. No, and it shows, like, with your commentary, it's always very much you see that kind of as you said, that total natural reaction to what's before you, and I think it adds a level of authenticity that really just adds to the performance.
And I think that's the key thing to it, and that's the thing that I love when you see with audiences like that as well. Whereas like there's like, look at the WrestleMania thing, like so many fans were going off that like Cody Rhodes didn't go over Roman Reigns for it, but in reality that was the most perfect way to fucking do it. It was the most perfect way to end it. And it's like I can just imagine Vince sitting there and he's going, yeah, Roman's going to go over, and there's like, but Vince, what about the fans? Fuck them, pal.
It's funny you say that, because I was like, perfect example. I got to the end of that match. Roman went over. I was so pissed off that I turned off the TV. And I've been wrestling for 8 years and have been a fan since I was, 11. That still triggered that emotional reaction in me.
Really? I thought it was such good business. I was like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's fucking brilliant.
I got there. I got there in the end, but it took me a minute. Like it was this moment of like just sort of like sitting there and just sort of like, damn it, they're right.
But if you look at it though, like he hadn't really overcome much.
No, and it if they ultimately do go down that road of him being the one to dethrone Roman at whenever it is, SummerSlam, WrestleMania 40, whatever, it will be all the more meaningful, and it will be incredibly satisfying to see all of the people who played full keyboard warrior about it when he lost, Mania just gone, to to see them be like, fine, it was good, it worked out well.
But you know what? This is my theory, how they introduced that new heavyweight title. That's the thing that's going to connect Rhodey. That's the thing that's going to connect Cody and Roman at around SummerSlam. And then they start the build to WrestleMania, all the belts on the line, universe, whatever the fuck it's called, and then that's where they'll do the culmination of it, and they'll retire the world heavyweight title yet again.
Not another unification match, for God's sake.
Bro, I'm telling you, if I would be surprised if it doesn't go down that way, but I think that's what this belt is leading to.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. It'd be a shame for them to reintroduce it and have it only last a year before it got absorbed again.
It's wrestling, bro. They'll probably bring it back in 5 years' time again, and when they see another benefit to do the same sort of shit again, it's it's the story of it, man. But let me ask you this, dude. Like, as a performer, like when you going to certain shows and stuff like that, is there ever like certain things when you get pitched stuff that to do, right? And you're like, oh man, this doesn't really fit with my character. This doesn't sort of fit with that. How do you sort of like navigate around that? Like, do you sort of like go, okay, no worries? Or do you try and sort of like explain how your character would and how react in certain situations to get it?
To be honest, it's not, I haven't really ever been, I've never really been pitched anything that has made me go, ew, no way am I, going to be doing that. And to be honest, even if I was given something that I didn't necessarily agree with, I wouldn't ever, poo-poo it and not do it. Like I'm a huge believer in being in the philosophy of just making the best of what you've been given. Even if I'm only going to be, on screen for, 30 seconds and I'm getting absolutely demolished, even if I'm looking completely silly or stupid, I can still go out there and conduct myself in a way that people are going to remember me and people are going to be interested to see what I do next. So to be honest, I kind of am more in the camp of sort of being like, yeah, no worries, just because of the fact that I have confidence in myself to be able to work with it and to be able to treat it as a challenge and to use it as a launch pad, even if it wasn't necessarily intended to be one.
100%. And I think it's up to you as a performer to get that shit over. Whether it's
totally.
It's not, you know what I mean? Like,
look, we're playing a part. I mean, I'm playing a part, it's not always going to be, I'm not always going to be the lead. I'm not always even going to be a secondary character. I'm, going to be, if I'm going to be the guy in the background, walking across the street, then I am walking across the street in the best goddamn way that I possibly can, because that shows my value, and it shows that I, am willing to work with the people who are, trusting me enough to be a part of their show. And it's there's no such thing as a bit part.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I think everyone plays their part on a show, and I think not everyone can be the top person every single time. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be that sort of mix. And I believe that the cream, as the cream rises to the top, brother. But you know what I mean? But like that also does happen. And I feel like the people that put the effort in, the people that sort of, okay, no worries, man, I'll take this and I'll try and do the best, you know what I mean? And show you exactly what I can do with it. That's the right attitude to have, because I feel like some people you see, like they get given something, it's like, oh, I don't really want to do that, blah, blah, blah. So, hey, man, you've been given an opportunity to do something. You know what I mean? If this is what you want to do, take that opportunity and be grateful that you got offered it.
I learned that lesson years and years ago from Todd Eastman, actually. He was,
Todd.
I love him so much. He's amazing. Wrestle Dad. He taught me so much about being able to take advantage of opportunities that I had been given, and to be able to make opportunities from places that didn't necessarily appear to be leading me anywhere, if that makes sense. And this is not an example of that at all, but back in 2019, 2018, doesn't matter. I was the Queensland open weight champion for a company for Pro Wrestling League and AWA. And Todd said to me, I was in this feud with Sebastian Matters, and he, basically said to me, look, Xander, I'm thinking we're going to have you drop the belt to Seb. And initially I was kind of, against it, like, oh man, I've only just like won the title. This is my first, I'm the first champion, shouldn't, we get a little bit like of extra mileage with it. And he was basically like, no, man, just trust me on this. And, I lost it to Seb, and the crowd was absolutely livid. And then when I ultimately won it back from him at a 3 Stages of Hell match in December, the ultimate kind of, response that we'd gotten to the feud was that it was one of the best, rivalries that that Queensland Wrestling had, seen in years. And to this day, it is the most proud I've ever been of anything that I put out in professional wrestling. Like the stuff that me, Sebastian, and Todd, pulled together, in front of the screen and behind the scenes it was amazing. Like, you can actually see the whole thing. If you look up the Open Weight trilogy on YouTube, you get all of the matches, all of the promos, yada yada yada. I'm so proud of how it turned out, and it was such a valuable lesson to me of just kind of trusting the people who are writing the story, and to remember that every part that we play has meaning, and to trust the process.
Yeah, man, 100%. And you know what, bro? Like, Todd has got a really good mind for the business too. Like, every time I talk to him, man, he's a very intelligent guy that really gets this business.
Yeah, he's so intelligent, and some people don't necessarily always have the best relationship with each other, and but that's wrestling. I have never had anything but just the most delightful time working with Todd, and I think that he is just I think ultimately he contributes so much, and he cares so much, and I miss him. I haven't seen him since I left for Sydney, and he's always been a really loud supporter of everything that I've done before and since. And yeah, if you're watching, Todd, I love you and I miss you.
I'll clip this up and tag him in it on social media so he sees it. There you go. We'll put you over here, Todd. But like, for yourself, man, like, starting to see you appearing more and more on shows, bro. It's so good to see, man, because like, you're such a cool dude, bro. And like I said in this intro, man, every time I get to like be on a show with you and get to hang out and just have a conversation with you, it's always just a fun, chill conversation. Very intelligent dude, bro. This has been a great conversation, man, as well. And like, I don't think we're done just yet, but like, for yourself, man, like, you've just done your cert, completing your cert 3 in fitness. What's the next sort of steps for you, bro? Like, what are your goals, in the next few years?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for what you said, Piers. That's incredibly kind of you, and I've always found you just be an absolute, a delight to, to talk to and to be around. And I consider you, a great guy and a great mate. And I'm really, touched that you feel that way about me. In terms of my goals for like the next couple of years, like the main one for me, ever since I got down to Sydney, was to be a key part of PWA Black Label. And if I don't necessarily have any sort of, I guess, goals of, I don't know, being the champion and all that sort of stuff, it doesn't really matter. All I want is to be a regular, part of, Black Label shows. That's my main goal for this year. In terms of like, the subsequent years, I want to leverage the amazing training and opportunities that PWA has offered me to use treat as a springboard to go and wrestle over in the United States, whether it ultimately leads to being signed. That would be amazing. But just to get out there and to be able to have new experiences and different experiences, and learn from different people, and wrestle in different places in front of different crowds, to be able to go out and really have a kind of more international experience of wrestling would be just fantastic. But the main goal that I am ultimately working towards is either to get signed in the way that so many of the amazing people who've come before me have been able to, or honestly, and I think this would be really cool, to help to assist Australian wrestling into becoming a place that is on par with the biggest promotions in the world, not just in terms of wrestling quality, but in terms of the size. For PWA to be main eventing Horden Pavilion on a regular basis, for one day us to fill out the MCG, things like that. For us to be able to be the top wrestling promotion in the entire world, and to be able to make a living of pro wrestling without having to leave my home and my family behind, that would be, just incredible. But I guess I love having long-term goals, but to be honest, I'm much more the kind of person to kind of, focus on, like, what's coming next, what's next week, what's next month. Right now I'm focusing on the PWA show at the beer shed that's happening on the 13th. We've got both an all ages event on the at 3:30, and then an 18 plus, later that night. And then we have the Rumble next week at Liberty Hall, which is going to be just insane. Those are the things that I am most sort of, I guess, laser focused on right now, is those short-term goals of making whatever opportunities that I'm able to take advantage of in those spheres, being able to take advantage of them as best as I possibly can, and being able to use that as the springboard to the next thing.
Yeah, man. And I think that that's probably the best thing to do, man. Is just keep your eye on the prize, bro. Take every opportunity you come. Man, the beer shed show, bro. Like, how's that shaping up? Do you know who you're wrestling on
Blood,
that?
sweat, and beers. Like, I'm not going to give any spoilers as to who I am going to be, wrestling. Just because of the fact that it's not very good decorum to to spoil it. If the guys at PWA announced it beforehand, I'll plug the hell out of it. But I know that it's going to be a really entertaining night, and I think if you do come to the show, which I heartily encourage you to do so, and to everybody else watching who is in the Sydney area, come to the Beer Shed on the 13th of May. For one thing, amazing pub, so much beer, so many amazing food trucks, and also the quality of wrestling is going to be mwah. You'll find that the show will be incredibly entertaining, and you'll find that whoever I am going to be partnered up with is someone who will bring out the best in me. I'm not going to say any more than that.
Well, there you go, man. There you go. But it is that time of the show. It is time for 60 seconds with Piers. How this works, I've got a bunch of questions I'm going to fire off at the Illuminator. He's got 60 seconds to answer as many as he can. Bro, you ready for him to start the clock?
Lay it on me. I'm ready. Okay.
Snapchat or TikTok?
TikTok.
Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
How many x-rays have you had?
3.
Instagram or Twitter?
Instagram.
What game show would you be great at?
The Chase.
You have the ability to change the ending of any movie. Which movie, and what is the new ending?
I would change the ending of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, to have it be revealed that Rey was never a Palpatine, but was indeed no one, as had been hinted at in Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and to go off from there and, start something new rather than having a tacky adoption storyline.
Okay. What is your go-to party trick?
I can speak a bit of Spanish.
If you could delete one item from the world, what would it be?
World hunger.
Okay, last one. In 5 minutes' time, you're being shipped to outer space. What 2 personal belongings do you take with you, excluding human beings?
I would take God, that is really hard. Am I being like shipped off, like, just like into like deep space, or am I going to eventually return to Earth?
Fucking deep space, man. You're gone for fucking years.
Okay. I would take I would take a copy of the entire works of Shakespeare, and I would also take a pack of like a sort of like an agricultural pack, like with like soil and seeds and shit.
There you go. That is 60 seconds of Piers with the Illuminator, Xander Sullivan. Xander, thank you, man, for this episode, bro. It's been great talking with you. Where can everyone find you on social media? Where can they follow you, get merch, etc.?
You can follow me. It's really convenient because all of my social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are all under the same handle. It's Illuminator_XS. So that's ILLUMINATOR. UMINATOR_X for X-ray, S for Sierra. You can find me there. I'm not always the best at, posting, so it is a little bit, inconsistent, but everything that is out there is always very entertaining. In terms of merch, I haven't got anything sort of, I guess, out there at the moment, but I am toying with a couple of designs, which I am hoping to release probably in the next maybe 1 to 2 months. So keep your eyes on this space.
Hey, there you go. And guys, also make sure you like, share, subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please give a 5-star review. Go and check out our sponsor, Sleeps.com, for all your athletic wear and gear. Use that promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount. But also make sure wherever you're tuning in, make sure you're liking and sharing this around. We appreciate it. Xander, thank you again, man. I appreciate you having coming on, bro. We got to do this again sometime soon. But, man, till next time, we'll see you guys again very soon. Take care. All the best. Mwah. Peace.
Thanks so much, guys.